Welcome to another episode of Retail Media Thursdays. I'm David Sequeira, your host. Today I'll be speaking to Deni Petrova from WPP Media and Charlotte Murphy from Unilever. So welcome to Retail Media Thursdays. It's great to have you both. This is different for us actually to have an agency and a brand on the same show, as we call it. So it's really exciting. So just to kick off, would you both introduce yourselves? Charlotte, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. Exciting to be here today with you both. So my name is Charlotte Murphy and I head up the digital retail media team at Unilever in the UK market. Unilever is a fast-moving consumer goods business. It's home to some of the world's most loved brands such as Dove, Persil and Vaseline. We're actually in 95% of households. And I've worked at Unilever now for 7 years across commerce media. And prior to that, I spent 10 years working across brand, digital and data.
Cool. And Deni?
I'm Deni Petrova and I lead the retail media strategy and activation team for Unilever, so the agency at WPP Media.
Okay, so first question. It might seem like a simple one, but it's actually quite complex. So Charlotte, I'm going to ask you, how do you define retail media within your organisation?
That's a brilliant question to start with. So we refer to retail media as any retailer-owned media or data touchpoint across on-site, off-site and in-store. And that can include both digital and physical.
Great. Any differences on your side?
I would say no at the moment, but I think there was definitely a different view maybe a couple of years ago when the people were seeing retail media is more like because the term either appeared, retail media, people were seeing us as the digital side, but because we work so closely together, like we need to be aligned, we need to see it in the same way. So I would say at the moment within our organization, especially within our relationship, we see it the same way. Digital plus in-store and everything that touches retailer signals.
So Deni, I'm going to start with you based on that answer. We've seen the way agencies and brands work together evolve over time. How do you two partner?
It's really interesting because Unilever and WPP have a very, very long-standing relationship. So it's many decades. I think it's probably almost a century-old relationship, and it's a very strong partnership. And like being part of it and like seeing it how it evolves even now after so many years, I think is quite special. And like the ways of working definitely have changed. I feel we have like the true like sense of partnership now. I think it's no longer like this formal agency client relationship vibes. And you can feel it with, and I think we're quite lucky. We have like great teams that are so involved and they're so passionate about what they do. And everybody just wants to do their best work. So I think it just really comes across when we meet partners together, when we have meetings together, when we go to events. And I think we're also very lucky because we work with some incredible brands, so with very strong heritage. Mm-hmm. And like being part of like the journey of these brands, being able to see how brands evolve even now after so many years, I think it's quite a privilege and it is very special. So ways of working have definitely evolved, but evolved for the best.
And Charlotte, I guess you've been said at Unilever 7 years. So how have you seen that relationship evolve?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Deni was saying. Over the last, in the retail media space especially, it has evolved considerably. If I think back 4 or 5 years ago, I wondered what role brand agencies would have in retail media, because of course we've already got quite defined ways of working with retailers, and retail media was in a very different space back just 4 or 5 years ago. Now I've got a completely different view. Retail media spans across the same channels that brand agencies operate in. So integration is no longer optional, it's essential. And as Deni said, we've got teams on both sides that are set up with the expertise to be able to manage the complexity of a highly fragmented area of media, which is retail media.
Yeah. And just to clarify, when you say channels, you're talking how videos become part of retail media, out of home, and all those channels
exactly,
incorporated.
Yeah, social, connected TV, all the channels that we now have at our fingertips to access the capabilities of retail media. I've seen it evolve. That means it's had to evolve from being a siloed channel we plan for to a more integrated strategic partnership.
Yeah. And Deni, I'm just going to add on that as we're talking here. Do you see retail media as a channel within WPP, or is it a channel and something else, or how do you see it?
I see. Well, that's a great question, very timely question, because like we have a lot of work streams that we work very closely together, and like our goal is to not see retail media as the channel that sits here anymore, and like we bring it, we integrate it within the process from the beginning of like when you set the strategy for a brand all the way to conversion, and how retail media can, because it can influence absolutely every step of the way, and it can influence all of the teams and can give them the data and insights that probably is the only channel that can provide that, like real audience, real conversion and consumer intent data.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's really important now that we think about, also I think it's really important now that we plan for retail media in a way that enables us to hardwire it into those really early planning sessions that we have across agencies and brand planning. So it's not something that we think about as an afterthought. It's something, as Deni said, it's part of the strategy from the start.
So I'm going to jump on that. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is about internal education and how retail media then is not seen as an afterthought, how it's like central to your planning. How do you do that at Unilever?
Retail media internally is spoken about as a core growth driver. It enables us to deliver our strategy, which is all around driving desire at scale for our brands. And of course, we can do that now throughout the offering that we have with propositions across retail media. Because that we operate across 10 retail media networks, all retail media networks have their own ways of working, their own measurement methodologies. It requires constant upskilling. I think that learner's mindset and curiosity is really important in commerce media. So for us, it's really about how we position it internally and then hardwiring it into those planning moments so it doesn't become an afterthought. The reality is that retail media is where shoppers are making decisions, and therefore it needs to be built into the strategy, not as an afterthought.
Yeah. In terms of that internal education then, like whose responsibility is that? Does that sit with you, or does it sit with multiple teams, or how does it work?
Yeah, so that sits within my team. So we work across every business unit at Unilever, and we work very closely with WPP to make sure retail media is on every plan, and that we deliver the relevant content and strategy for retail media. So it's a joint effort across both WPP and my team internally. But we, as we say, there's so many different retail media networks. It's really important to drive that continuous upskilling across the business, because what was around last week is completely different to what's going to be around next week in retail media.
Yeah.
But we already seen that very clear, like the efforts you mentioned. I think we're already seeing that actually paying off, because we will have brand teams asking, well, where is the retail plan? And like, why is that not included? And then we have the retail team saying, well, what are you investing in media and how are you targeting? So everybody's starting to think about that as part of the overall planning and strategy, which is definitely good to see.
So Deni, then just to add to something there, your teams are focused on retail media, but Charlotte's already talked about the definition of retail media and how it isn't a channel and how many different functions come into it. We're now starting to call it commerce media, I guess. So how do you see that shift? Is it changing the skill set when we're thinking about education and how your teams are having to think about, the responses you give to Charlotte and team?
I think there is no two companies or organizations that define commerce media and retail media the same way. I think whoever you ask will give you probably a different definition of what's the difference between retail media and commerce media. I think going to about commerce media, I'll say it's everything that touches any commerce related signal and data. So it's much broader than just retail media where the conversion actually happens and when people buy the product. This is what I would call retail media. But again, there's argument to say that both terms can be used same way, and even we internally sometimes say, okay, do we actually just stick to retail media? Do we actually call it commerce media? Because for the moment, like, we have a certain set of like retail media networks, as we said, that we operate and we work with, but we always explore additional options. We always explore different channels. We always explore how to use retailer data into the wider planning. So you could argue it's much broader than that, and we can probably call it commerce media. It's one of the most confusing, I would say, things in the industry at the moment.
How do you think about the utilization of other data signals such as shelf?
I understand. I think they are very integral to what we do. I don't think you can have a proper, strong retail media activation strategy without having digital shelf signals influencing what you do, because it changes all the time. Like, stock levels change like every hour. Demand changes all the time. Like, even weather influences how people search and what people buy. So unless you have digital shelf insights automated flowing into your activation, I don't think your strategy is complete.
What's really clear is you two have personally a good relationship, and obviously you've already talked about how your companies work together, a long-standing relationship. One thing I've always wondered, we hear agencies and pitches within the press talk about how they like to challenge the client. Does that really exist? Like, how do you challenge your client, or how does your client, I guess, challenge you?
Yeah, I think challenging is important, but I don't like really calling it challenging the client. I think it's more like adding a perspective, and I think nobody likes to be challenged for the sake of being challenged. But if there's trust, like if there's a strong relationship, if there's trust, and if both sides know that they both have like the same intention, I think challenge is welcome. But when it comes, when it's backed with experience and like real true understanding of the business, and I think this is the situation where we allow ourselves to challenge our clients, where we are confident that we understand the business, and when we've seen something that can be done differently and it's going to be beneficial, this is where we feel really confident challenging the client, but not for the sake of showing kind of experience from different verticals or situations.
So it's about understanding your clients'
Absolutely.
challenges, opportunities, their business goals, and then being able to provide a consultancy approach to how you deliver.
Yeah, and when you mentioned pitches, I think like challenging during a pitch is a very early stage of being able to credibly be a challenging person in the right way. So that's why I think it's like when you have that established relationship and understanding.
Yeah. So does that change the demands that, I guess you've talked about internal education, you've talked about having, 10 retail media networks that you're working with. And if you think about working with those 10 retail media networks, as you said, all of those retailers will have different data, they'll have different look back windows, they'll have different conversion points, different sales data, whatever, like lots of different things that happen. That's a lot for you guys to take on in terms of that internal knowledge or even your own knowledge. So does that mean that you shift a lot of that to your agency to help you with when it comes to providing back that consultancy, I suppose, and does that shift the relationship slightly?
Yeah, it does. We do, as you say, there's a lot of data, and we need to understand what data is relevant for us, and every brand will have a slightly different strategy and therefore be looking at potentially different metrics depending on the job to be done. So that's why it's really clear when you are working with your agency to share the bigger picture of what you're trying to achieve for your brand, so that they then have that autonomy to drive campaigns and optimize towards that goal. And that I think only comes with trust of sharing a much bigger picture of what you're trying to do, and not give just a very focused view on what your brand is looking for. And that of course then links back to the challenging question, because I would expect an agency to challenge us. So if they have all of this data and they know what our brands are trying to achieve, if they're then seeing different results or results that aren't aligned to what we're trying to do, that's when you'd expect to be challenged. And is this the right strategy? Should we pivot here? What should we do? And that's the dynamic that we have in place.
Yeah. And actually the interesting thing there, you talk about the brand and then you talk about brands, because, you know, you've got, as you've already mentioned, tens of different brands within the Unilever portfolio, and not every single one of them has the same strategy, right? There's different, some are growth, some are in, you know, the main play in the market or whatever. So there's a lot of different complexity there as well.
Yeah, that there is, and that's why we always come back to a shared set of principles in retail media. What we expect from retail media in terms of measurement and transparency, and those principles don't change. But the strategy around how plans are executed or optimized, that's where we would see variability.
Okay, so that leads me on to, I guess, one final question before we do quickfire. What's changed more, the expectation of the brand or the role of the agency?
I think definitely the expectations of the brand, which actually led to the evolution of the agency's ways of working, because brands have access to data, technology, in-house capabilities more than they've ever had, and I think this will continue evolve, and especially now with AI. And I just realized it's the first time we mention AI in this conversation, which is not a bad moment. And now with like AI, which becomes like a lot more prominent in our like day to day, I'm sure you both agree like the bar for delivering value and demonstrating value is only getting higher. So agencies need to evolve, and brands no longer expect just an execution. As we've discussed, is the strategic partnership, is someone who can join you in like high stake conversations, someone you trust to like be your partner in these situations and always even challenge you, if we go back to the question, and make sure you're on the right track. I think this is what the brands are now expecting from agencies, and agencies have had to adapt to that. And I think a lot of agencies will try and standardize ways of working and like service offerings and things like that, but there's always needs to be that agility, because there's no one size fits all.
So the expectation you have as a brand on Deni and her team at WPP has shifted over time, and probably even quicker now with the advent of AI.
Yeah, exactly. And I would even take a step back from that and say it's because us as consumers, our expectations have shifted. We as consumers want now personalised content, recommendations. We want frictionless checkout, instant answers, thanks to the advancements in LLMs. So brands need to meet this new criteria that consumers now set. And if brands don't meet these new expectations, they risk becoming invisible. And that means that brands now have a lot higher expectations from agencies to be able to connect the dots between media and commerce and brand. And we really need to be working together and having plans, holistic planning, to be able to meet those consumers where they are in that journey to the expectations they would expect to see.
So, and I think this is a good point around the fact that retail media is no longer just about bottom of the funnel DR metrics, for example. It fits, it's the whole funnel as such.
It is. There's still a funnel.
Let's not get onto that. Have we got time for that? Yeah, we only mentioned AI a little bit, so there you go. We could, that's a whole topic to itself, in terms of how, with all the data you've got, as you said, or how you expect your agency to work in a world where AI and agentic is driving force. All right, well look, thank you. So we're going to move to some quick fire questions. Okay, first one. If you had to ban one retail media buzzword for the rest of 26, what would it be? Quickfire, remember?
I don't think I would ban anything. I mean, there isn't anything that annoys me that much, but there are two things.
There's not anything, but there's two.
There's two things that I want people to actually start using properly. So I wouldn't ban them, but I would like to see them being used properly, and that is incrementality and that is full funnel. Going back to the funnel. I think these are the two things that people use all the time without the clear understanding what it means.
Fine, so you wouldn't ban them, but we need to use them.
I can't ban them, they're very important, but we need to use them correctly.
Okay, yourself?
So mine would have been ROAS. I think it links to your incrementality point of this shift. We need to be talking about IROAS, incrementality, not just ROAS, because we know in retail media you can easily manipulate a ROAS result, and that's something that obviously is very misleading to do, and something that it gives wrong direction to brands. When you have a high ROAS, does not mean it's driven incrementality. So how do we start talking about incrementality in a way across the industry that really drives the view of retail media to deliver for brands?
Cool. So even when you're banning words or you're adding words, it's all linked.
It's always linked.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Second one, you two obviously work very well together. What superpower do you each bring into your weekly calls or your relationship?
I would say for Deni's superpower is clarity. And in a world where, like you've said previously, there's a lot of fragmentation, lots of innovation across all the retail media networks, operating across many brands, to have that clarity on what we're doing and where we're going is really important, and that's where I see Deni's superpower.
Nice.
Oh. I'd say for Shar is definitely calm and stability. This is what I get when I know we have a conversation, and even if I bring a problem, which I try not to, I know we will end the conversation with the solution together. And I think it's a very strong it's a very strong leadership quality to have that calm and stable attitude to everything. And I think Shar gives that not only to our team, but I see that in her team as well.
Well, and just comment from one thing you said earlier, obviously some of that links back as well to the fact that doesn't matter how many retailers or brands that you work on, you have core principles within Unilever that I guess in your head are always there to drive your business metrics. And then even if Deni's bringing you problems or challenges, you can go back to, okay, calm myself down, it all fits around these principles, etc.
Exactly that. And I think with retail media in the position it's in, we need to create that space to have failure, to learn, and that comes with creating good partnerships and trust, because really that's how we're going to create long-term growth, is to learn quickly, integrate and move on.
Great. Okay, two more. First one, which Unilever product is always in your shopping cart?
Always something from Dove.
Nice.
Yeah, big Dove fan.
I would say with two little kids and tons of laundry to do all the time, I'd say it's Persil for me, and lots of cleaning to do, so I would sift to that as well.
Wow. Okay, fair.
Oh, if we were going to pick two, I would then also add Tresemme. Yeah,
okay.
Tresemme Heat Defense is something that Tresemme was the first brand that I worked on 17 years ago, before it was even owned by Unilever, so I have a strong connection to that brand.
Fair. Okay, and final question. It's 5:31 on a Thursday. Where will we find you and what are you drinking?
Oh, I would love to say you'd find me in a pub in Tooting drinking a glass of wine or a beer, but realistically I'm rushing to Pilates.
Okay, fair.
I would love to say I'm drinking that glass of wine with Shar, but I'm probably running up the escalator at Waterloo because I'm missing my train again.
Wow, okay, fair. All right. Well, you'll find me here drinking IPAs, so if you ever want to join, come along. All right. Well, look, thank you both. That's been really fascinating. I really appreciate being on Retail Media Thursdays, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.